welcome to Monday Night Live in Lexington, you guys. My name is Catherine Kaufman, and I'm a psychic medium here in Lexington, Kentucky. Welcome to my every Monday night show. This is where we discover what and who we are on this journey called life. Tonight, we have a special guest, Sister Jessica Johnson, here with us, and we're going to be looking at dabbling and what the dangers are of dabbling in things that we don't have experience with. Special shout out to all you guys over here on Instagram with my buddy, Miss Joy Hall. Hope you're doing okay this evening. And also, we're going to be getting some notifications here shortly from Facebook. We'll be doing some shout outs here while everybody is getting on the air. Let's find out. Sister Jessica, tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Well, I'm actually a consecrated virgin, which is really a stunner there. 60 years old, never had any. That's crazy, ain't it? Anyway, I am a sister. I'm a Benedictine sister. And I'm here. I'm here with you. So let's bring it on.
Well, so I wanted to bring you on the show tonight because what I'm seeing in my practice these days, a little bit more and more, are people kind of getting into trouble or having some bad effects from dabbling. And when I say dabbling, we're going to go over like the definition of dabbling. Dabbling, per the dictionary, is described as experimenting with occult practices like spells, magic workings, Ouija, ghost hunting, divination practices, necromancy, sorcery. It's also defined as like to work or involve oneself superficially or intermittently, especially in a secondary activity or interest. So to me, what that means is there's no guidance. And that's the main thing that I think gets people into trouble, is not only maybe they should not be in that area, but there's no guidance and there's a huge exposure to a lot of negative stuff. So let's do some quick shout outs for the people that are joining on Facebook. Big shout out to Melissa Begley, Angela Atkins, Jaylyn Bland, and Sharon Goff Wilson. Glad to see you guys. Also, if any of you all have a question for Sister Jessica or myself, just put it in the chat box, and I will be sure and highlight it here for us to answer. So when you joined the order, did they go over dabbling, or did you already know about it?
I knew about it prior to ever joining the church. I'm former Amish, gone Catholic, with a whole lot in the middle. And the middle part was the dabbling part, because I too dabbled. So I'm here to give you what kind of information that I can. So hopefully we'll cover all your bases.
What was it that drew you to that experimentation with that?
You know, actually women are most actively involved in that. And so, you know, I was kind of outside of my comfort zone. I had been in the Amish, and my mother brought me to North Carolina and to Charlotte. Culture shock, blow away type thing. And then she opened up a what do you call it? Like a oh, come on now. You got me going again.
Was it a business?
Yes, it was a business. It was making these things. So
okay.
It's like a ceramic shop. It's kind of like a ceramic, you know,
yes,
kind of thing. So, but yeah, I was doing that, and there was a lady there, and she turned me on to Raymond Buckland, to Janet Stewart and Farrar, the Farrar people, and to Gardnerian witchcraft and all of that. And so I decided to
So did she
see what I
present
could
it
do.
to you? Did she present it to you like as a solution for a lot of problems?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I can have control of my own destiny. You know what I mean? And
Ah,
you
okay.
know,
So
I could, if I wanted to be rich, I could do that if I put in enough oomph. So,
yeah.
yeah,
And so what was your experience like? What was your experience with that? Did you have some bad
I
effects
did.
from?
I did. I had actually wanted to do a protective spell, um, and my intent wasn't right. You know, I've heard it over and over and over. Responsibility, intent, and intent was the major part of it because I didn't have the right intent. And so what I had done was I had looked up a goddess that was basically over this insect world, spiders and things like that. And
Mm-hmm.
not only that, she was part of reproductive and all of those things. You know, you when you're young, you want a boyfriend and all that stuff. And I thought I could have that. And so I did a spell, and I did a protective spell. And my intent was just not in the right place. And so, since I had used this particular goddess, I actually got some feedback that I wasn't happy with. And that feedback came in the form of wolf spider babies.
Oh
And
my.
I don't know if you've ever had wolf spider babies, but they bite. Yeah, they
I know
bite.
wolf spiders are huge.
They're huge, but when they start out small, they're mean.
Oh man.
So, and they had come out of the trees, you know, that I don't guess they had done the baby thing. And so they came out of the trees to go on their own, and ended up in my laundry.
Oh my God.
And so,
I
I had to sleep with all these little babies running around my laundry. It was awful. And I got bit up and everything else. And, it was not cool.
Oh my gosh.
And I can't, you know, I cannot say enough to be responsible, because not only did it affect me, but it affected my friends. It affected the person that I was with at the time.
Yeah.
So, you know.
So not only what we were talking about earlier when we were going over things was that dabbling doesn't just affect you in an adverse way, but it affects everybody surrounding you, like your friends, your family, your kids.
You also have to take into consider your life, their lives, because, you know, by the time you bring in something like that, you know, anything can happen. So
do you feel like that dabbling can bring on like negative paranormal stuff?
Yes, without fail. It's easy to be reading a book and know that you can talk or bring in another spirit into your life or into your house.
Mm-hmm.
And they have this thing where you can trap them and stuff like that, and you don't ever think what's going to happen on the other side of your spell once you put it out there.
Mm-hmm.
Or whatever it is you're dabbling with. And so that's why we say it's we can't say enough, the responsibility and intent. Yeah.
What's the worst thing that you've seen happen with somebody who has been irresponsibly dabbling?
Oh wow. Well, aside from myself, I don't know if y'all know anything about the Amish faith, but they have this thing called powwow, and it's their version of witchcraft. That's
I've
legal.
heard
It's kind of a legal thing, you know. It's like we can do it in the church because it's a church thing, and it's for healing, and it's for this and that and the other. But you know, I've seen people go in there and do these things. There was this one guy who he was a big person in the church, They didn't know he was doing the powwow thing, but he would get people, bring them in, and try to heal them and convince them that he's healing them, right? But he's not healing anyone. And so he had this whole big spoof with not only this person's family, but the church, the police. You know, it all generally goes backwards.
So do you think that he was doing it out of like ego and power?
Yep.
Let me check for questions, and I'm going to do a quick couple shout outs here. Shout out to George McKinney. Good to see you tonight. Ina Thompson. Special shout out to Jacqueline Johnson. Hope everything's okay out there in Richmond. Judy Burkett Roberts. And a special shout out to my beautiful sister, Vera. Love you. Glad to see you here tonight. So we were talking about some of the symptoms that can occur from dabbling or experimentation with different things. And again, I'm going to go over the things that are occult practices that people kind of classically dabble in. And that's spells, magic, workings, a Ouija, ghost hunting, divination practices, necromancy, sorcery, and all these other things. In just my experience, where people get into the most trouble is either with ghost hunting or trying to communicate with people or entities that have passed on. I would put it classification like inexperienced type of mediums. They may have had, maybe a couple of instances where they've had a communication, and but yet they don't want structured learning, and they don't want to learn about, the dangers of what they're doing, the safety practices, and then they get into trouble. So some of the symptoms that we're going to look at are, and these are just a few because there's a lot more: anxiety, depression, loss of interest in things that once brought you happiness. A huge sense of oppression is another real classical one. And these two are real classical too, is a withdrawn personality, and paranoid thoughts are really rampant in this type of thing that people experience. So all of those symptoms can overflow onto your family. Your family or your kids can pick up these symptoms and start having them as well, which is really bad. And we were talking also, sister, about multiple personalities can also arise during this time. So can you explain that just a little bit more about the multiple personalities?
Well, PTSD is the big factor here. When you go through all these horrific events, you have ghosts or something beating on your walls at night, and you can't get rid of them, and you go into not only this depressive and anxiety type issue, but you also, your brain, when you get into a position where you cannot control the situation, where you cannot control your mind, your brain will automatically shut off. Mm-hmm. It's like a little switch, and it causes sometimes in some cases a personality can form at that time. And so then you get the multiple personality, depending on how many times this brain issue clicks on and off. Mm-hmm. So the PTSD is a major factor because you're going to have nightmares, you're going to have all the anxiety, all of that. So yeah, that's how the multiple personality comes in there.
Now, there are a lot of people who practice divination, who do ghost hunting, who do Ouija, but for some reason they don't ever have any ramifications from it. And so either they've been trained, or they're studied, or they have I feel like some kind of natural protection. Yeah. But that's a small majority of the large cases of it, I find anyway.
Yeah.
So, you know, the show is not to down anybody or say, you know,
Yeah, not at all.
don't do it or whatever. But what we're trying to do is to bring to light, this is a possibility that could happen. And these are some of the things that you can do to help yourself out if this has happened to you. And so we were talking about, I wanted you to kind of hit on some of the Psalms and the prayers that are used to help people in these type of situations.
This book. This is my prayer book.
Handbook of Prayers, and that's, is that published?
It's a Catholic prayer book that's published to the public. It's by Reverend James Socius, and it's through Midwest Theological Forum.
Okay.
And one of the best prayers that I have that I absolutely adore is the Universal Prayer, because it brings you into the light with your Creator, because you're going to have to open yourself up. You're going to have to be a part, this particular prayer, it's kind of long, but it takes you through all the parts of you, the things that you want to give to God.
What's your favorite phrase from that prayer? You're saying, I knew she was going to ask that.
You should have asked me that before that.
I knew she was going to ask me that.
Help me repent of my past sins and put to light future temptations. Make me conquer my evil incantations or inclinations and cultivate the virtues I should have. Grant that I may love you, O good God, and I despise myself. That's kind of good.
That's nice. I like that.
Isn't it cool? So
we were talking about another psalm that is used.
Psalm 70.
Psalm 70.
It is often used with the go on now. Yeah, I got stuck on it again last
house
time.
Exorcisms.
Yeah, house exorcisms. Yes, it's part of that.
Yeah.
So it's kind of right there with Saint Michael prayer.
Yeah. So, and Saint Michael prayer is always the one that we classically think about.
Right.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
Let's see. There was something else I was going to hit on here. So when a person is dabbling, what really happens, I think, is the person's energy field is being extended past the auric protection because they're wanting some kind of contact. And so the energy field is extending past that, out of curiosity or whatever, and the energy is reaching out for a connection. But the problem is the person doesn't control what reaches back. So
someone asked if we had actually helped someone who had dabbled. We have. I'll just put you that way. We have.
Yes.
Recently.
Okay, so let's give an example of that.
Oh, wait a minute. Something happened. There you go.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm sorry.
Can you see it now?
I got. Yeah, I'm on now.
Okay.
Sorry. As an example of that, other than going and trying to do a cleansing and whatnot, but try to talk with the person too, because the thing with dabbling is, if you dabble, you bring something into your home, and then we come along and we do what's necessary to cleanse your home and to make your life better, and then you turn around and decide, well, I'm not done dabbling. So you're just bringing all of this stuff back onto yourself, and that happens quite a bit. And there's a
Yes,
lot
it
of
does.
people, and dare I say, there's been a lot of people that have contacted me wanting to get help, and yet they don't have a problem. Not with the spirit. Their problem is with themselves.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that
Yeah.
happens quite a bit.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, here's a good question. I'm going to put it up on the screen to see if you can see that. What is the difference between dabbling and contacting the spirit world and a medium contacting?
wow, that's a good question, because, you know, people in my realm will tell you that contacting a medium is like one of those things you shouldn't do. It's kind of like the spirit board type thing. But I can't say that. I mean, I guess I'm not a medium myself, but I am a little bit more on the, what do you call it, the physical side. So,
You have to be really careful about, here's the thing about a trained, experienced medium, and I mean trained, experienced, a person who, like, I'm just going to put myself as an example. I never began offering any type of medium readings until I had been doing them for decades and testing the information to make sure that it was safe and accurate. Because as a medium, it's possible that spirits and entities can cloak themselves and present as one thing when it's really another. And if you go to, let's say, a friend of yours who sees things, that to me is kind of dangerous, because that person doesn't have the experience. They haven't tested their information. There's no knowledge of whether that's actual information or whether it's not. And so that can be extremely risky to do. So when someone is dabbling in trying to contact spirit, they need to be guided by an experienced medium. They need to be instructed on, things to look for, protection, prayer work along with that. George McKinney wants to know an example. So an example would be, let's say I went to counsel somebody and they had symptoms of oppression, partial possession, and we went through and cleansed the house. Everything is good, everything's fine, and then they get curious and they want to know more. So they start dabbling with, a voice recorder or something like that. And then all of a sudden they start getting all these negative voices coming through the voice recorder. Well, that's extending, their energy out there in curiosity and fish. It's like fishing. You can't really tell what's going to bite on that hook. And it may be something that you do not want to reel into your house.
exactly right.
So, I hope that makes sense. Let me do some more shout outs here.
You wanted some more examples. I wanted to tell people that
yeah, go ahead.
Spiritual, I come in from things from a Christian point of view. So, and I don't want that to be just the only way, because there are other ways. But to help people that dabble, and have these problems, there are certain biblical passages that you can read that will tell you what's going to happen to you if you dabble, or what the things that can happen to you. I suppose put it that way. One of those is 2 Kings 21, 1 through 16. This talks about a guy who dabbled, and he ended up losing everything. And I'm not just saying that that's going to happen every time, because it doesn't. I mean, I can go out here with a little spirit box and have a field day, and nothing ever happened to me.
Yeah.
But then I have to be responsible in this and say, I've got to accept the fact that I could bring something home because I'm out here dabbling and talking to ghosts. So I have to bring that, I have to bring that to the table.
Yeah.
And then you have all, there's a few other Psalms. I don't know what they are right this second, but that you can also go to. But
so Melissa wants to know.
The Book of Job is a good one too.
Yes, Book of Job is good. Melissa wants to know, what about requesting a deceased loved one to visit you in a dream? Is that safe?
I would think so.
It is, because, just the energy fact of you missing them, and there's an energy connection between you and them that doesn't go away just because they've lost their body. That energy connection is still there, and the communication is too. And so when you put that out there, maybe I need you, maybe I would like to talk to you, then you're traveling, your energy is traveling on that pre-existing connection. So that's perfectly fine. So here's a good question George has. I've had people tell me reading your horoscope is considered dabbling. What do you feel about that, sister?
No. I don't think so. I don't think so. Straight up. No.
So,
hey, I've read my horoscope too. I've even read some things that wouldn't be considered a horoscope. But it's not dabbling. Dabbling is actually, if you take that horoscope and then you try to do something with it through another means, then I would say that's dabbling.
But I mean, planetary influence is a fact.
That's right.
People do get more crazy during a full moon. I mean, that's a fact, and we all know that. And so the other planets have physical effects on us as well. And the horoscope kind of reflects how our energy fields interact with these heavenly bodies that are rotating around us in the universe. So here's a question from Deanna. So when a medium contacts the spirit world, they use precautions. They prevent the negative effects a dabbler wouldn't know to prevent. Yes, Deanna, exactly.
Yeah.
And not only that, do we take precautions and prayer work and all that, but there's an experience of dealing with things that present themselves that are not what they say they are. Okay? That can only be obtained through experience, and that's a huge one, because spirits are energy, and they can manipulate that energy however they want to present themselves in whatever fashion that they want. So a lot of times when I go into an investigation, and I may get EVPs that say, I'm the devil, or growling or hissing or whatever, that doesn't necessarily mean anything. All that means is that spirit knows what to do to elicit fear.
That must be what you're down with the death card, huh?
That's all that means. And right away, a lot of inexperienced people will say, oh, it's a demon. No, it's not. No, it's not. There has to be a lot more involved in order for a demonic infestation to be
generally a demonic infestation or possession, that's very, very rare. It's not something that happens on a daily basis.
Yeah. Okay, so this is a good question from Amber. What about binaural beats that hypnotize, calming, healing? I listened to one that was asking for complete control, which was creepy. Do those binaural tones open up vulnerability? Not really, Amber, because your brain goes through these brain waves anyway. All the binaural beats do is maximize the beneficial effects of that particular brainwave. Any kind of binaural beat is already a brainwave that you experience on a daily basis. What the binaural beat does is it puts control on what you want out of it. For example, alpha wave, the ability to problem solve doubles when your brain is in alpha wave, because you're having access to subconscious information. So when you take a binaural beat and you use it and you say, I want to experience better problem solving, and I'm going to do this binaural beat and pay attention to flashes of insight. All that's coming from your own subconscious, nowhere else. And it's already a brainwave that you're in every single day. You just may not be maximizing the effect of it. Let me check other questions here. So Jacqueline says, yes, planetary influences are real. It even controls how you respond to things like body waxing and hair coloring. Absolutely, I agree with that 100%. And you know, Jacqueline, remember the old Farmer's Almanac? I bet you do too, sister.
I do.
And you know, you only planted on certain days, and you didn't dig up your root crops on certain days, and those are all very valid, you know, like proven things, and everybody always went by the Farmer's Almanac. So Sharon Goff wants to know this. So is playing with cards dabbling?
Yes.
Yeah, if you're
straight out, it is.
Yeah, if you're not experienced, you know, to be able to get information from cards, you really need to be guided by someone in doing that, because it can really turn out wrong. Just the main thing is be guided by someone or taught by someone who's reputable and experienced. Don't experiment. And if you have any bad types of things that happen, get help and maybe do some of the prayer work that we refer to here. Here's another question from Jaylyn. I've had many instances to where I get a feeling or just know something prior to something happening. I've also had many instances to where I've had entities follow me from one home to another. Is there a way to strengthen certain abilities without, I can't see the rest of that, hang on. Without, is there a way to strengthen certain abilities without causing too much damage? Yeah, there is. You've got to be taught by somebody who knows what they're doing. And that's, like, I get a lot of calls from people who they say, I want to do what you do, but yet they don't want to put the work into the study or the testing and the amount of practice that it takes. It takes a lot of practice, trial, error, and testing to make sure that you're getting actual information. So Christy says, what if you use oracle cards? Cards are cards. They're all symbolic communications. Now, like I said, there are some people who have like natural protection. And for whatever reason, you know, they can use cards, they can use Ouija boards or whatever, and nothing ever happens to them. And so my thought is on that they have some type of angelic protection or natural protection from the spirits around them. It can still go awry, but like I said, the main purpose of the show is to help people who have experienced problems know what to do, and to be able to identify, yeah, I did this and maybe that's why I've got the problems that are happening now. So here's another question from Amber. In Greenup County, when I worked for Conservation District, Farmers Almanacs was something we handed out like candy to farmers. It works, and most I know still use them. I use an almanac. And they do. The planetary influences are real, and you'll have a bad crop unless you follow it.
Miss Flannery, Deanna Flannery wants us to put the prayer book in the feed there. I want to let her know we can do that.
Okay, we will definitely do that. That was a universal prayer out of the handbook of prayer. Was that what
Yes,
it was?
it's a handbook of prayer. It's
Handbook of prayer,
I'll look at it again.
and it was the universal prayer that
Right.
we were talking about. Plus
You
Psalm
can look
70.
that up online. You should be able to look on the universal prayer.
Right.
It's a Catholic prayer, so you'll have to put that in there. But you should be able to get that online if you want to be specific about that. Otherwise,
Yeah.
we can put the information about the prayer book, and you can order that yourself.
Yeah. Here's Joshua. Hey, Joshua, I haven't seen you in a while. Good to see you. If we're looking to open up to our sixth sense, would that be considered dabbling? Who would you recommend talking to safely open to that sixth sense? So everybody has abilities. All they work, the abilities all are channeled through the alternate brain waves that you use on a daily basis. But most of the time, when the conscious mind is in control and we are awake, alert, and task oriented, you are in beta wave, which is a fast brainwave. But when you slip down into alpha, theta, and delta wave of the brain waves, it's a slower brainwave, and you're receptive to information from the universe or from spirit at that point. That's the psychic abilities are all channeled through that. So if you want to open to that, what you have to do is find a reputable person or teacher that can teach you about each ability, how to safely use it, and how to incorporate that as a benefit to your daily life, which is going to involve, prayer work. And to those of you that don't follow a classical Christian type of religion, it can be any type of prayer work. It's the intent that we were talking about that is the most important. But you have to be guided through. It's like if you were going to open your sixth sense, and then all of a sudden you had medium abilities that came through, you're not ready for that yet. You don't know what to do with them. You're not sure how to proceed. Guidance is the biggest thing. I am putting all of my teaching is going on Skillshare this year. And so you'll be able to find it there, but it'll be structured and it'll be video content that kind of guides you through every single thing. In the old days, I did person to person teaching, and I took on students, and we did field trips doing testing the medium abilities, that's a big part of it. Is you have to know if what you're getting is real or not, because the imagination can overlay on top of the medium ability and can lead you down a totally different path that can be completely wrong. So I hope that answers your question, Joshua. Let me see. Hang on. They're going by so fast, I can't keep up. Lost an employee to COVID. He came to me in a dream. I am starting to see things in our home, starting on a night vision camera now to the naked eye. So there's something, Joshua, that person is left undone. What I would do is do a theta wave meditation before I go to bed and ask him to communicate, or do a prayer first, a protection, and then ask him to communicate what is it that you want to say, what is it that you've left undone. Because usually when people hang around like that and they're trying to get your attention, it's because there's something that wasn't said or something that hasn't been done that they feel an urgency behind. So see if you can find out what that might be. And that usually rectifies the paranormal stuff that's going on.
Joshua, if you use Psalm 70 before you do your asking, then I think that would be sufficient enough.
Yes, that's perfect. Yeah, you're not going crazy, but I do think that there's something important that spirit has to relay that keeps them from going on and crossing over.
Guys,
Now,
I'm sorry if I get a little bit crazy because I ain't never done one of these things before. So this is new for me.
I hope
I'm back here being quiet.
I hope that helped, Joshua. No, that's the kind of thing that I want you to chime in on, Sister Jessica, because that's the kind of thing that they need to know.
Right.
Is that's the perfect thing for them to do, is do Psalm 70 before trying
exactly.
to. Yep, exactly.
And, if you have any problems, you can always end it with the St. Michael. So, and
okay,
here's a little bit more.
Here's a question I missed. Christy wants to know, if someone dabbles in a house and negative energy comes into the house, if that person moves, will it go with them or could it stay in the house? It stays.
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, it stays. And a lot of times I've been on investigations where all kinds of stuff was happening. And just through walking through, I'll see a book on the occult, or maybe some cards in the corner or candles or something like that. And, I've asked the parents, does anybody in the house work with stuff like this? And they'll say no. And I'm like, okay, what is this stuff over here? And they're totally blown away because they weren't aware of it. But whatever it was that the daughter or the son or whoever, the nephew, brought into the house is still there. So yes, it can definitely stay. Definitely.
It doesn't necessarily follow you around, If I was a spirit and I found a house, I wouldn't move.
Well, but the thing that I think happens with that is it's a point of entry where they come in. They may be locked to either they're going to be locked to the person that brought them in. In that case, they're going to go wherever that they're attached to the person. They're going to go wherever the person goes.
Right.
They're locked into the property because it's their point of entry. And so they're locked into that location. So yeah, it can be bad. You need to kind of monitor what's going on in the home. So here's another question from George. I had a friend who dabbled. They moved out of the house. To this day, no one ever stays long in the house. Yeah, there's probably something pretty bad they brought in there. And that's just it. You're extending. It's just like you're fishing. You're throwing the bait out there and waiting to see what's going to bite.
Well, see, that goes back to responsibility.
Yeah.
If you're going to dabble and bring something into the house, then you move, you're going to give it to another person.
So you had come up with an anagram.
I know. What is it? It's rest in peace. It was rest in peace, but it's responsibility, intent, and protective prayer.
Yeah.
So, yeah, rest in peace. Remember that. We're going to start a new anonym.
Okay, here's another question by Joshua. Our neighbor said the lady that lived in her house before we brought it said she would see people walking through walls and so on, unless I brought something in from shopping at a peddler shop. Which, and that's one of the biggest things that I've experienced in doing investigations. A lot of people have brought home stuff from antique marts, peddler's mall, estate sales, yard sales. I've even done it several times. I've got haunted stuff all over my house. But, you can bring stuff home like that inadvertently. And it can be a problem. And then, who do you call?
Yeah, me.
So Deanne wants to know, is reading tea leaves dabbling? Again, if you've been trained, if you've been guided through, if you know your steps, if you've done your protection, you should be okay. But, if you don't know what you're doing and you're just experimenting with it and you don't really have any particular protective prayers or anything like that, you can get into trouble.
It's the same thing with the Ouija board. People talk to me about the Ouija board. You know, in and of itself, the Ouija board isn't nothing but a board and it can't hurt you. It's what you do with it that matters.
So I have a story about the Ouija board.
Uh-oh.
When I was a kid, my mom got us a Ouija board for Christmas, and I didn't think anything about it. But she started using it. She wanted to know what was in her Christmas present. And the first time she used it, it told her what was in the Christmas present.
Oh, really?
And the second time she used it, it wouldn't tell her. It kept saying, no, love, no, you can't know. And she got so angry because it wouldn't divulge what was in her Christmas present that she threw it in the trash. And that's my experience with it. Okay, here's Patty Ann wants to know. I was always able to water witch and pendulum since I was very young. My dad did it too and taught me. And that's just like my grandfather did well finding, found wells for people using a peach tree limb. And that is a form of divination, albeit it is using an altered brainwave state. And what the peach tree limb or whatever limb you're using for water witching, what it does is it allows you a focus so that you can communicate with your own subconscious and lower the brainwaves down to receive information. And, you know, if you're taught to do that and you're responsible doing it, you can find a lot of water or minerals for people. She wants to also know, is a pendulum bad? Pendulums are just
like everything else, you know, it depends on what your intent is, and as long as you're responsible with it.
Right, responsibility, using your protective prayer before you use your pendulum, because it's just a different form of dowsing. Not everybody, let's say, okay, it's January, I can't go out and cut a peach tree limb, obviously, so that might be an instance where I would use a pendulum. But again, like Sister Jessica said, being responsible, making sure your intent is right, and using your protective prayer. So here's a question from Amber. Should we try to accept to live with spirits that pop up if they do not cause harm, or do you still need to cleanse every day? The fact of it is, Amber, that there are spirits everywhere. And this really tickles me because people will say, Catherine, do you want to go to Waverly, or do you want to go here or there? No, I don't have to. We don't have to. Everywhere there are spirits. There are spirits everywhere. You know, if you're particularly sensitive, Amber, you're going to sense them. But again, just do your prayer, your Psalm 70, and go on about your day and try to just let them to their existence, and you kind of focus on your existence and what you're all about in the here and now for today. So,
yeah. I actually have an ability that I don't tell people around about simply because it's not a good thing. And that ability is to be able to predict death. And I've done it on all of my family members, but I never tell them. The only person I've ever told was my mother, and that was only because we had to clear the board. So
yeah. When now there's a previous show, and this hits on something. There's a previous show on my YouTube channel about time and our perception of time. So the latest theories on time is that we perceive time as linear, but if you actually, the faster you go, if you're going towards the speed of light, the faster you go, time actually starts to break down. And what that means is that they're saying that time is more of a location rather than linear. Our experience is linear, but it is a location. So when you tap into the fact that someone has passed on, but they're not passed on yet. What has happened is the brain waves have slowed to a point where you're able to perceive or extract that location and be aware of it. There's nothing that you can do to change it because it's actually already happened.
That's right.
So that kind of takes off the weight of, should I try to change things or stop things from happening? No, there's no way you can. That's why you've perceived it, is because it has already occurred. So this is a funny question.
Can they see me now?
Okay, so let's think about that. I get that question a lot, and a lot of people want to know, can they see me on the toilet?
If it's a residual haunting, they're probably not looking, because they probably don't have any. It's not a what is it?
So the perception, the perception that they have is different, because if you think about it, a spirit doesn't have eyes. What it perceives is energy. Okay, so it's going to perceive your energy and not the physical attributes that you have or maybe don't have. So I hope that answers your question. Oh, shoot. So Kelly wants to know. Oh,
South Carolina. I'm a North Carolina person here. In the
glad
wrong
you're
state,
joining the show. The show is every Monday night at 7 p.m. and we go over self-help stuff. And this show tonight is strictly, you guys, to provide self-help and answer questions for you about these type of things. So let's see. So Jalen says, my mother had a negative experience when using the Ouija board when we were younger. It told her where a lost remote was, but when her friend took the board home with her, the friend heard growling and scratching coming from the closet. Oh, I got to hide that in order to go back and see what the rest of it is. Let's see where the board was put. They never used it again and got rid of it. I, however, have never had an experience like that while using the board. Yeah, Jalen, it's like I said, some people seem to have like natural type of protection, or maybe they're doing things in the correct manner to not have adverse effects. And then other people are reckless and, they have bad things happen. I want to hit on one other thing before we call it an evening. I know we've gone way over, but it's okay. Yeah. So, and this is kind of concerning because there's a lot of articles now being written in the psychiatric field about a new syndrome that they have dubbed Satanic Syndrome. And it's a psychopathy where depression are predictive of individuals who've been subjected to occult involvement. So what that means in a nutshell is people who dabble, they're inexperienced, they don't know what they're doing, they're not being guided, their intent isn't correct, they're not using any type of protection. What's happening is that many forms of depression and anxiety are kind of blossoming out of this practice of black magic and dabbling. And so they've dubbed it Satanic Syndrome, which I thought was very interesting and I did not know about. But it is a little bit concerning because to me, what that means to me is that this type of behavior is on the increase. So, it is something that the psychiatrists and psychologists are being educated in right now, and they're really looking into how this affects people insofar as the severity of their depression and anxiety, which I thought was very interesting. And what I'll do is I'll try to leave a link in the comments after the show to the article that was written on this in case anybody wants to read about it. But I want to thank Sister Jessica for joining us here tonight and giving us all
Thank
these
you for having me.
resources. And I want to thank you guys for tuning in. And if you feel like any of this information was beneficial for you, or you know of anybody that needs that information or might appreciate the help that this information can provide, please share the video with them. It will be up on my YouTube channel as well. I want to thank each and every one of you for tuning in every Monday night. It's awesome to see you guys. And
remember, rest in peace now. Responsibility, intent, and protective prayer.
Absolutely. Big kisses. Kisses from Kentucky, and I will see you guys next Monday night. Bye.
Right.